This is America in Space, a weekly news and information program on current events dealing with the space industry.
Welcome, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Dawn Meyer, Space Coast News Editor. SpaceX unveiled their new extravehicular activities, or EVA spacesuits, on Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you, 2024. The suits will be used and tested on the Polaris Dawn private mission later this summer. We will cover more on Polaris Dawn later, but today I'd like to tell you more about the features of the new EVA suits. They have a lot of new features, including a 3D printed helmet with a new visor to reduce glare. They have a heads-up display, or HUD, inside the helmet, and a camera providing data on the suit's pressure, temperature, and relative humidity, and new joint designs to provide greater flexibility. The new suit is described as an evolution of the spacesuits currently worn by the astronauts aboard the Dragon missions, which are launch and re-entry suits, or IVA, intravehicular activity suits, that are designed solely for remaining within pressurized environments. The new EVA suits will allow astronauts to work both within and outside their capsules as needed, thanks to a number of advancements in materials fabrication, joint design, enhanced redundancy safeguards, as well as the integration of the new HUD display. Polaris Dawn will mark the first commercial spacewalk, as well as the first spacewalk to simultaneously include 4 astronauts. Here is Scott Kidd Poteet, Polaris Dawn's mission pilot, to talk about why SpaceX designed their own suits.
But I have to say, going back to inspiration for when I first got introduced to SpaceX, I was like, they have all these ambitious goals. They're reusing rockets they catch on ships. They're trying to build spaceships to take us back to the moon or Mars. Why don't you just buy somebody else's suit? And then maybe on the surface, you're like, well, it's like the aesthetics, looking very cool and inspiring about the future is important. And I'm sure there's a component to that, but it's this vertical integration desire to control all the pieces necessary to eventually get to that self-sustaining kind of Mars civilization. And we were able to see it in practice over the last 2 years. I mean, just so cool from where we started to where we are now. And it's all in-house, and every week or two you come back and Chris and his team, figured out a new joint, or, a new approach to the visor coating, or new ways to have redundancy on the life support system. I mean, aesthetically it may look similar to the IVA, but what they did under the hood is extraordinary. And to do it in 2 years was only possible based on SpaceX philosophies and what's in-house that Chris and his team oversee. It's just been such a pleasure to watch. And really today's as an unveil is a far bigger moment for you and your team, Chris, than it is for us who are fortunate enough to wear these suits.
Chris Tigg, the SpaceX Senior Manager of Spacesuits and Crew Equipment, talks about what they did to design the EVA suit and how it differs from an IVA suit.
We kind of started with the IVA suit that we have on our missions currently as our baseline, and kind of took it from there of what would we need to change in order to support an EVA. And one challenge actually was to make sure that we kept all the functionality of the IVA suit in addition to adding the EVA capability. So we're using a single suit on the Polaris Dawn mission, so the crew will be wearing it out to the pad all the way through splashdown. So we wanted to make sure that everything the current IVA suit could do, we maintained that functionality, but then also made it EVA capable as well. So one big item out of the gate was mobility. We've done a lot of work on joints across the suit to make the suit more mobile now that the crew will be getting out of their seats and moving outside of the capsule onto Skywalker. So a lot of new joint design across the entire body. One of the joints that we worked really hard on are the rotators on the arms and the shoulders and the wrists, which allow the rotation of those joints. And they're unique in that when they're unpressurized, they stay soft and flexible, so that during dynamic phases of flight, like launch or reentry, you don't have hard metallic objects that are kind of loading into the body of the crew members, but they stay soft. And then when you pressurize the suit, they rigidize it and give you that mobility that you need. Another big element was the thermal side of the suit. So obviously much larger thermal extremes that the suit will see when it goes outside of Dragon versus what it sees inside. So there was a lot of work on both the materials of the suit, developing a whole new layer that we needed to add for thermal management, as well as looking at the thermal condition for the crew members themselves and making sure that they were at a comfortable temperature inside the suit. And one thing that we added to their umbilical was a cooling knob that they'll be able to turn on or off to get cooling as they need it. Another big element was some added functionality in the helmet. Jared and Sarah will have cameras in their helmet, so we'll have a kind of first-person view of what they're seeing through their visor throughout the EVA. And then all the crew members have a HUD, a heads-up display in their helmet as well, which is displaying the real-time pressure, temperature, and humidity inside their suit, as well as a timer so they can keep track of the time of the overall EVA. And so those are just some of the bigger ones, but really a kind of total overhaul of the design when we got to the end of it here in terms of revisiting everything that we could to make the suit safer and more robust, given that we now know that we're going to vacuum for the EVA.
As I said before, we will provide more coverage of the Polaris Dawn mission as we get closer to its launch date later this year. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for listening from your home or where you work. Listen each Tuesday for This Week in Space with John Gomez. And join me every Friday for America in Space. From the Florida Space Coast, I'm Dawn Meyer, Space Coast News Editor for About Space Today.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to share our program with your family and friends and follow us on Facebook. Join us each week for news and information on America in Space.